3 textbooks that I'm going through. Pick one. It's tough.
Yeah.
Okay, ready anytime you are.
Okay, everyone. So I'm Hannah Warner. I'll be talking about organizational change today. I want to just start off by having everyone cross your arms. All right. Now go ahead and arm the other way. Okay, awesome. So what I'm going to have you do is just hold that there for a little bit and we'll come back to this idea. So specifically today, I'm going to talk about organizational change, but I want to talk about the implementations of organizational change and also the leadership styles that influence change best. So there's 5 implementations of organizational change. The first is to create the change, create the case for change, right? Get people to start buying into the idea of change. Secondly, design a structural design. So you want people to be able to see the vision and be able to follow it step by step. You're going to engage others next. Then you're going to implement and sustain the change. And lastly, you want to facilitate and development capability, right? So you want people to understand why they're doing it and to maintain that and to follow through completely with that change. So as I was reading, I couldn't help but think about a manager who would constantly try and implement change and he wouldn't do it. So my manager, Benny, very neurotic, but a very, very nice gentleman. Every day we knew that there was going to be some type of change he was going to try and incorporate. And it was just at the perfect time of the busy period of lunch. Like everything's going crazy. We have a ton of tables and he would just be like, I don't like the way this is working. Throw it out. Let's do something different. But you know what he wouldn't do? Tell everyone else. He would tell this person closest next to him that was the person and expect that person in the busyness of it all to go and communicate that to everyone else. And now I'm guessing we all know what happened. Change did not happen. I'll tell you that. The next day come into work, everything's the exact same. I mentioned to my manager, guess what? He even forgot what he implemented the day before. So change did not work. And according to the implementations of change, there's reasons why it didn't work, right? So he did not create the vision for the change. He didn't get us to buy into that change because we didn't even have the time. We weren't expecting it. There was no structure for that change. He didn't communicate or engage other people to change with him. He did not maintain the change, right? He would forget about it the next day, so we would too, and then it also defeated his reputation. We knew that whatever change he was talking about, it didn't even make sense, or it wasn't even going to follow through and continue. And lastly, he did not motivate or and lead others to that change. So it didn't work out. So with this, I was thinking about which kind of leadership styles are more likely to implement change best. Does anyone want to guess what they think? Which leadership style implements change best? Yes, awesome. Good job. Yes, so transformational leadership style is the one that incorporates and makes change best. So they are able to create the feeling of urgency to make people inspired to change and want to grow. They determine and explain the vision with the employees. So they're understanding why that change occurs. They engage everyone. They make sure everyone is on board and that even though some may be hesitant and against the change, they're able to inspire those to change. So now let's go back to the arms. So I know that you guys at first, were in a comfortable position, right? You all went to the comfortable style of holding your arms the way that you always do. Then I changed it up, right? I asked you to switch your arms. And at first, it seemed a little uncomfortable, seemed a little weird. Some of you were hesitant and didn't really know what to do. Some of you were very quick and you changed immediately. Now that's the same way as change in the organization. There's going to be some people who are going to be against the change. They're not going to understand the change and they're going to be persistent and against it. But after time, just as you probably forgot that you were holding your arms in a different way, that change will end up becoming habitual and it will become natural. I'd like to leave you with this quote by Albert Einstein. The measure of intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. So if you can manage to step outside your comfort zone, on the other side of that will be change. Thank you. Okay. Anyone have any? Yes.
I just want to say, I can tell how confident you were in this presentation, like you really knew what you were talking about. I love how you did the arms crossing in the beginning and brought it back at the end. You didn't forget what was happening, and overall, great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I loved how you tied in a personal story to the steps that you had just established. So it wasn't like you were talking about how to implement change and then you had a story and then you moved on. Like you literally like showed us how to implement change and then you had a story that tied directly in to what it is that we just did. That was fantastic. I love that.
Thank you.
The only feedback that I would have, like, as to what you could improve on, is move around a little bit. Like,
I'm
that's
trying
it.
to balance it. I
I
feel like
know.
last time I moved too much and then I was like, oh,
I know, it's so difficult. Seriously though, that's all I got. Like,
Okay.
that's it. I was trying to find something and that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you.
I just wanted to say it felt perfectly balanced from my perspective with everything, your movement, the content in your or slideshow. I was able to focus on that and hear what you were saying, and it felt so seamless. I'm just amazed at how much you grew.
Thank you.
I don't want to go after you now.
I'm sorry. You're gonna be fine, I promise. Just breathe. It does help standing up here and like breathing and kind of like talking to people. So yes, Jane.
It was really good. It would have been better if you didn't make me feel embarrassed about my presentation.
You guys are doing great. Thanks though. I think I saw a hand over here, but I don't know. No? Oh, sorry. Okay. Anyone else?
I just think it was a really good presentation. Like, it was, I don't have any critiques. It was really good.
Thanks. Anything I can work on at all?
Great job, great energy. I felt like you were really engaging the whole time. Since you want something to maybe look at, the only possible complaint I have is on some of your slide titles where you used kind of the script font. It was a little hard to read. So I had to look at it for a minute and actually think about it before, it didn't immediately absorb.
I was trying to get you to rely on me, that's why.
Exactly. But other than that, no, no complaints.
Thank you so much.
I think it was excellent, like everyone else said, but since you're asking, parts of it to me felt like you were shouting.
Shouting.
Like I could hear you fine, but I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just loud.
ASMR.
I think you did a great job. You dressed very professionally. Appreciate that. Very good job there. You have a really nice presence. Like you walk around well. You stand straight. You don't like fiddle or do anything like distracting. You move around really well. I like that. And that presents really well. I like the question you asked of the audience, like what transformational style, knowing your audience could answer.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they answered wrong, I'm sure you would have been supportive, but they got it right and you were very pleased and supportive of them getting it right. So that's great. A couple things that I would say that could help. Even though you were very relaxed and it never felt like you were quite out of breath, it felt like you were getting close. And so there may be opportunity in the middle of your presentation even to just pause for a moment, maybe even build it in for yourself, to think of a way in which you could recoup some breath and just some regular breathing, either with some type of question and the audience speaking for a longer period of time, or asking for a couple voluntary things from the audience so that you could recoup, or the silence. I mean, obviously you could rely on no one and just incorporate a little bit of silence, between the things that you're saying, which may be uncomfortable for you, but that's a discomfort that I think everybody needs to develop, a tolerance for, because your speaking never felt slow, right? It never felt like it dragged on or like there was too much dead space. So you have plenty of opportunity to slow it down a little bit, just a tiny bit, just to catch your breath a little bit, relax a little bit. I know you're trying to move through a lot of content quickly, but that would be one thing. The other thing was the first, I don't know what it's called, GIF, whatever they're mentioned, or if it's not that. The first one felt a little bit distracting, because one time playthrough or even two would have been okay, but it kept like cycling over and over again.
Yeah.
And just for myself, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just old, I don't know. It just felt like it was a lot, right? It was just a lot of motion on the screen. The second one wasn't as bad because it doesn't move that much. So it wasn't as disorienting or distracting, but just as a thought, right? Like everybody said, it was a really good presentation. Very informative, great content, awesome delivery. You did exceptionally well. Great job. Oh, and Danielle said, great presentation. You can see how accomplished you've grown or how accomplished you are from your first presentation. So, yes, you have support from the chat.
All right, everyone. Hello. My name is Amy Tran, and hopefully you can hear me this time in the back. Hello. So today I'm going to be talking about organizational development and change. And first of all, let's talk about change. So change, it's everywhere. We recently had a time change. We're having the change in the seasons. Now it's fall. We got our comfy clothes on, and also, my emotions when I watch Toy Story. At the beginning, I'm fine. At the end, I'm crying my eyes out. And so, because I'm in a very quotey mood this week, I wanted to share a quote that I really felt blew my mind when it comes to talking about change. And it's from a really great songwriter, Bob Dylan. He said, "There is nothing so stable as change." So, what does change look like in organizations? What is So according to one of our readings this week, organizational change, I'm in your way, is the difference in form, quality, or state over time, and organizational entity. So what that really means is change in an organization could be anything. It could be in your processes, it could be in your departmental structure, it could also be in your overall organization's business model. So change can be anything. So with that, how does change happen? So there's 4 change process models. I'm going to butcher pronouncing this one, Telewaji. I'm sorry. So that one is a planned change. So it's seen as a repetitive cycle of goals, implementation, and evaluation. And this breaks down when the change is occurring, there's no recognition that the change needs to continue. So let's say you are currently right here with your change where you want to be. And as you make progress, you get to where perceptually it looks like you've gotten there and you just stop, the process ends. And the next part where another breakdown is where there's lack of consensus, where people want different things as part of this change process. So the next type of change model is the life cycle. So this one is where you go through a naturally occurring set of stages that are regulated by rules. Parts of the organization might have rules or just logical ways of doing things. And these break down when there's a lack of compliance to prescribed routine or no inclusion of the group. So I actually have a short story to share about this. While I was working at small brands, I worked in contracting, and with that one, I worked with the insurance companies to ensure the dentists got contracted to see the patients, and I worked with billing as well. And one day, just doing my usual thing, they said, "Hey, this is not part of your process." They did not include my department at all. So we were learning this brand new thing right on the instant, having to use it right then and there. And of course, it was difficult to understand what we were doing. It made our jobs harder. It didn't help our customers in the end. And we ended up just going back to email to respond to inquiries. So that change did not occur. The next one is the dialectic, where you have conflict between two entities. And this usually happens when power of one overcomes the other, and you're able to come to a resolution by engaging each other. So this would usually break down if the conflict cannot be resolved. It can be very destructive. So something like that could be, for example, with reporting for my organization that I used to work with as well. We would have reports that we would send out, and suddenly someone would request a report to come out in a certain format, but because of system limitations or just the process to do that, we can't do it right away. But they had the power, because if we didn't get them this report in this certain format, our dentist wouldn't get contracted. So we worked out a resolution, we talked to them, we engaged together, and we were able to move forward with saying, okay, well, give us this template, we'll work with this and give it to you every 2 weeks. And the final change model is evolution, so competitive, where there's selection from variations that just naturally occur. And this breaks down, and the change model doesn't continue when there's few variations or there's a lack of, oh, I'm sorry, I put the wrong thing. But primarily there's few variations and the change model doesn't continue. So with that, when there's change and there's breakdown in it, you have two actions or two routes you can take. So you can take just the action, or you can reflect on it. So in reality, per the reading, the best course of action is to take both. So you take action to try to get everyone back on track with the change. And then you also, if it continues to fail, you reflect on it and change the model that you're using. And before I continue, I actually want to do a small activity. I'm jumping ahead. I wanted to talk about a change that's very modern and it's trending in the business world. It's called digital transformation. So digital transformation is where an organization uses data and technology to change how they do work, to change how they do their business. Let me double check where I found. So digital transformation, what it ends up doing, it reshapes an organization's activities, processes, and capabilities. So now that we're going to be jumping into just a couple more examples, I'm going to have you guys raise your hand if you've ever done any of the following. So raise your hand if you've experienced an organization's digital transformation. Ooh, I love it. Raise your hand if you have started your online holiday shopping spree. Raise your hand if you recently tried to move your shelf. And raise your hand if you had to redial a number because selecting the wrong option in the automated call system. That's me. You're probably all wondering, what the heck does this have to do with this presentation? Well, these are all things that you experience on the other end as a customer or a client from companies that have implemented
digital transformation. So with your online shopping, prior to that, was brick and mortar stores. And they jumped into the online game. You might even order stuff through an app. But we don't see organizational change, we just saw the end change with the client. But that doesn't mean that as clients, as customers, that it doesn't impact us as well. And with that, one good example of something that we've all experienced, but doesn't last very long, I don't know if maybe we called it, but Google Glass. So digital transformation also has a high rate of failure. There's 66 to 78% rate of failure for that. Quite the interesting thing. I don't know what exact change models, but there's a lot of research to be done further in this area. And that's it.
So first, I love your silly personality, and I love how it shines through your presentation. It really like makes me giggle, and I'm like, okay, what are you saying? I'll reply to it. I do recommend that you use a different color on your presentation. The white on the light blue background is kind of hard to see.
Okay.
And then also, when you start to kind of trip up a little, don't announce it to everyone, you know, just like kind of find your way through it, and like stay calm, and then it won't be as apparent to us that you're going back at that moment. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, it did. Thank you.
But overall, I did enjoy it, and I liked your idea of like, when we are doing these things such as like shopping online, like we're also experiencing that digital transformation too. So I like, oh, okay, I'm experiencing this with them, which is kind of cool idea. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more feedback? Appreciate it.
I really liked your presentation. You had a really good presence up there. It's like we want to listen to you. The way your voice is like super calming. The only thing that I would recommend is like to know your audience, because you spent a lot of time going through like one of the articles we read, like just like very like explaining what each concept was. And I think it was kind of like, okay, we all understood that already because we had already read that article. So maybe next time just kind of like bullet pointing things really quickly so you can get to like the other content, because I found like your data super interesting, and I didn't realize that systems like that fail so often. So that part was extremely interesting.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think you did a great job. I think you always look to iterate and improve and incorporate like new things, and I appreciate that. So whether it's, I mean, we've heard about like your work before, but I really appreciate incorporating personal experiences as examples as it relates to material. I think that's really good. Kind of to Becca's point, I would spend more time translating that to say this is, and build up the story. Like, this is what it looked like in this situation, and here's what the end result was. This is why it was successful. This is why it wasn't. That's the type of information that I think audiences benefit from the most, especially given that we've all kind of processed and digested the material from the articles that we read, but we don't know exactly how they translate into the real world all the time. Like that's more difficult, right? Like that's the I think the real crux of a lot of the things that we read is like, what does this look like in practice? What does this look like in a regular occurrence? And I think you did a good job of it. And I think you could even expand on that further, is kind of why I'm giving that particular advice. I think you did well, and you can make it even stronger. Another thing, and this is for everybody. So there's a difference between practice and rehearsal. what people benefit the most from is practice. Sorry, not practice, is rehearsal. And I want to say the difference here. So practice is where you're just like reading through the material, like reading through like your presentation, like your slides. You're just clicking through your slides, or you've looked at your material, or you have note cards or something. You're just reading through it. That's practice. Rehearsal is where you're standing up. You maybe even have an audience or a person listening, and you're presenting as if you were presenting. So that's how it's more beneficial, is because it's as close to the thing that you're going to be doing as you can get without actually doing the thing. So I would encourage rehearsal. So I know you have a spouse or a boyfriend or something, right? A significant other, that's right. And you also have a couple cats or dogs.
I have one cat.
Okay, you have people, you have things that you could have as audience. I thought you had more than one. Okay, so what?
One cat, two dogs.
Oh, well, there we go. You have a full house. So one cat, two dogs, and a
They
husband.
don't listen though, they go.
Well, even better. You can chase them around, giving your presentation. No, but in all seriousness, I would try to incorporate some type of rehearsal. I know I mentioned it because people have told me in the past that they will give their presentation like to their dogs or something, because they're just looking for some type of audience. Any audience is better than nothing. And like you said in your presentation, you had some information that wasn't correct on there, that you identified as incorrect, because we probably wouldn't have caught it. So that's the only way I know. Rehearsing it, you would have caught that, right? So just make sure that you implement some rehearsal. You don't need a full class of people to do it. You could have a class member or a pet or a husband or whatever to be able to do that. And then you might catch some of the things, but you'll also be more comfortable and find what works. Has anyone had the experience where you're giving a presentation over and over and over again? Like this happens most often in my experience at a conference, where you have a poster presentation and people just keep coming up to your poster, and they're new people every time. And you find out by the end of the poster hour, you're really good at giving your poster presentation because you've given it like 10, 15, 20 times by that point. Yeah, a lot of head nods. So that's what happens in any type of presentation. You find out what works. You find out, like, even in the subtleties of like what people are kind of drifting off from, or what they're like piqued their interest of, like the data from digital companies, and the failure rate of that is interesting. And you'll tailor that naturally. You don't even have to think about it most of the time, to modify the things that you're saying based on the feedback that you're getting from your audience, or even that you're recognizing in yourself, like, oh, I liked how this sounded when I said it. Oh, I'm more convinced. I liked talking about this thing. Your examples in the beginning were hilarious. It's really funny about change. You started really strong with a joke about not being heard from the back, and that you're hoping that you'll be heard this time. I loved that. I thought it was so good. It's really great to start with some humor, to start with some relatable content. I thought the start was really strong, really, really strong. And just to carry that kind of energy throughout, and that professionalism and rehearsed, kind of make sure everything's really as solid and lined up as I think you're capable of doing, I think it'd be even better. So good job. Thank you.
Before presentation day, I go into an empty room and just by myself. But usually people are here
Oh, okay.
before class kind of, and especially people are presenting. I'm kind of practice.
Well, I also wanted to share one joke, so I can calm my nerves even more.
I love jokes.
Which ran faster, the lion or the cheetah?
Cheetah.
Lion?
Lion or the cheetah ran faster? So
Oh,
we're saying
cheetah. Cheetah's the fastest, right? It's gotta
No,
be the
it's
cheetah.
the lion because he moved faster.
I love it. That's good. I'm gonna tell my son that joke because he'll ask me all the
What
time,
you like?
like, am I faster than the cheetah? Because he knows that that's the fastest thing. So everything's like, is it as fast as a cheetah? It's like, oh, we see a plane. Is it faster than the cheetah? Everything's about a cheetah. I'm gonna try that joke.
I love that joke since I was a kid. It just stuck with me.
It's a good one. Very good.
It knows what it is.
Probably just.
I'll let you know how it works on my 5-year-old, but I trust that it'll work. We have seen Lion King, so he might remember.
Sorry.
You're gonna need that next time.
Yeah.
I'm really curious.
Okay. I'll let him know. People are counting on it.
Is this on you?
Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
I'm doing well as well, a little nervous. So today I'm going to be presenting on organizational change and then specific to my current employer, which is Prime Healthcare Management, Inc. Just to give you a brief overview, Prime Healthcare is a healthcare system that currently states its mission as saving hospitals, saving lives, and saving jobs. So this spans over 14 states and is part of 45 hospitals and medical groups. And a part of this company is Biomedical Services. So the Biomedical Services entity is a corporate entity. It's a little confusing to understand sometimes. So the biomedical technicians and engineers that work in the hospital are employed by the corporate entity. So they don't work for the hospital, they work for corporate. So looking into our readings this week, I really resonated with the life cycle process theory in terms of my current experience with my employer. So this is stated as regulated change going through a series of activities and stages.